You're winning. You're winning. You're winning. You're winning. Hello, Epic Understanding family. You are winning with another episode of Epic Understanding. I have here tonight Stephen Jarret. I just call him Stephen JJ, but it is Stephen Jarret-Jordan, and he is an author. He is a man amongst men. He is well versed on many things. He happens to be an atheist, a feminist, and a masculinist. Am I saying that right? I'll check
Yep.
with him. And I'll check, and see if I'm getting that out right. But there is much to do about a particular article that talks about men and loneliness. I want to see what Steve has to say about it. Steve, what do you think about men and loneliness?
Unfortunately, I think they go hand in hand currently.
Really?
Unfortunately, yeah. I think there's a lot of lonely men out there for a lot of reasons, and I don't think it's just one. I think it's many, which is incredibly unfortunate.
So there are two schools of thought. Some people are saying men are lonely because of their relationship with women. And that, what I would say, that's the biggest school of thought. But when you dig deeper and you get to talking to men, you find out that many men are lonely because of their lack of relationships with men.
So that's a pretty, so the best way I can explain how I feel about this is a problem with so many sides that it's hard to really pin down one specific problem. So if you look at a 6-sided dice, right, and you keep adding sides to it, eventually it's going to get so large that it looks round. Now pick one side of that massive die and tell me that has a massive control over the rest of the ball. It just doesn't. Right. So you've got a bunch of smaller problems leading into bigger problems, leading into bigger problems, and leading into larger, massive problems. And loneliness is definitely one of those. Men not having access to emotionally healthy other men is definitely one of those issues, especially men who have integrity, honor, respect, who have a sense of duty to both family and community. Excuse me. The kind of, I think the misconception of a high value man is not what Andrew Tate thinks it is. Andrew Tate thinks you need money and all these other things. A high value man is a man that you can be with, a man that you can enjoy being with every day.
Hold on. You said a high value man, and you said Kevin Tate.
Andrew Tate.
I'm sorry, Andrew Tate. First, tell our audience who Andrew Tate is, because some people might not be familiar with him.
Andrew Tate is a very loud, outspoken, confident former MMA fighter turned inspirational TikToker, YouTuber, and whatever platform you want to talk about. And he talks about men and women and the cultural and social perceptions between them. I happen to disagree with about 80 to 90% of what he says, especially about women. I despise his opinion on women should have small body counts, but never actually addressing why men should too. Double standards. There's a lot of sexual double standards in his rhetoric. I've heard and seen multiple accounts that he's a very different person, in private. He's very kind. Very supportive, very gentlemanly. One story was he had a date with a girl, and it went fairly well, but he wasn't going to do anything that night with her. So he bought her a limousine sent her home in the limousine, but before he did, he talked to the driver, said, "This is my wife. You're responsible for her. Make sure she gets home okay." Right? So I think there's a little bit of facade going on there that I distrust. Like, if you're going to say something, dude, say it with your chest. Say it with some truth.
Okay.
Don't pussyfoot around it. That's just tell people the truth of how you feel. Otherwise, you're just yanking people around.
So, who came first, Kevin Samuels or this other gentleman?
Kevin Samuels, definitely. I think Andrew Tate learned a lot of his rhetoric from Kevin Samuels.
Okay, and so Andrew Tate got his rhetoric from Kevin Samuels. Who invented the term high value man?
It's hard to conceptually pinpoint it down because it's been part of the vocabulary of the Manosphere for quite a while now.
Yeah.
But I would say if I look back in history, I think really it probably started about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
I don't like the term personally because it demands me to believe that if you don't have the qualities they say you're supposed to have to be a high value man, that you are an inferior man.
Well, yeah.
And I think that's a pretty despicable way to look at masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty despicable way to force women to think about men.
Because
Like, men have a lot of really interesting and diverse qualities.
Okay.
There was if I can, one more thing. There was a book written by Lori Gottlieb a couple of years ago called "Marry Him."
Okay.
And in that book, she performed a study of I think it was about I think it was closer to 650, 649 people. And she found that women, when they were listing the qualities that they looked for in a man, to be married, to have a relationship with, women had over 300 different criteria.
Okay.
Men had 4.
Oh, really? And what are the criteria for men?
So the criteria for men was it seems almost limitless. It seems like it would be difficult for me to.
No, I mean, what's on
okay. For men,
the short list.
So men want to be loved, respected. What was it? It was love, respected, kind, and funny.
Okay. But I didn't hear anything about attraction, and men are very attracted to the package.
I that's not what her study bore out, and that's not what I've experienced, and that's not what I have experienced from men that I know, including myself. I don't look at it that way. I think the ones that do, I think that's a societal pressure placed on both men and women. It's unhealthy. The level of attractiveness or the body type really has no bearing on whether or not she's going to respect you, or whether she's going to help you raise your children together, or if she's going to help you keep your house together, or if she's going to help you achieve all the things that you want to achieve in your life. That these body types have no bearing on that.
Wait, roll through that list again. Help you keep your house together.
Help you raise your family together, raise your children together, help you achieve your goals together. Looks don't do that. The character of the person does.
Okay.
So I know a lot of men who really do not care what body, like, we all have our sexual preferences, right? And that doesn't say anything for the fact that our sexual preference, as far as body types, does not necessarily need to be directly relational, but to the type of woman that we want to be with. Like, we will happily settle for less attractive if they have all the other qualities.
You know,
now, me personally, I got the whole package with my wife, so I don't have that to worry about.
Okay.
So, but
I wonder, you know what? There's, I have you on here, and then I'll have Dr. Lay on here. And
I love Dr. Lay, by the way.
Yes, he's awesome. But sometimes you guys say direct opposite things. He is so big on fitness and a woman being fit.
Yeah.
He thinks that's like, top tier. And he speaks
Yeah.
towards body count. And it's important for a woman.
I
Now,
disagree with Dr. Lay on this very, very hard.
absolutely, absolutely. Listen, I'm not surprised. I wish I had you both here so I could, have you guys talk
One of these days.
talk it out, because I imagine that the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
don't think it has anything to do with body count. I think
Mhm.
it has everything to do with insecurity.
Ooh, tell me about that.
So how it's been argued by Dr. Lay and by others, there's
Mhm.
a whole conversation that has yet to happen, at least not to my knowledge. And I've watched most of your videos, and admittedly, not all of them. I haven't been able to participate a lot because of school, not like I used to,
Right.
But
Yeah.
the conversations that I watch with Miss Latoya, was that her
Yeah.
name?
Yeah, that was
Oh
fun.
man, I love Miss Latoya. She was
Uh-huh.
amazing. I really liked her. Um, but the conversation that was happening in that room, um, how he was describing it, I couldn't agree with it, because you have to explain to me the relationship between a woman's fitness and her ability to support you as a man emotionally, physically, how that can affect how she raises your children. Like, it's a very superficial, very, very top level, descriptor, right? I want to know if you have integrity. I want to know if you're an honorable person. I want to know if you're going to love and cherish me and my son. I want to know if you're going to, help me take care of my house, or are you going to help me, achieve my goals? Are you going to because if you have someone that works with you like that, there's an emotional attraction, an emotional sexuality that lust cannot satiate.
Ooh, emotional sexuality. That's a phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've never been more turned on by my wife than when we have deep conversations.
Ah.
When we talk about our feelings, when we talk about our beliefs, when we talk about our ideas, when we talk about what we're going to do next, what our goals are, when we just have conversations about interesting things, I'm never more turned on than I am in those moments.
That's
And I
really
know for a fact that a lot of men are like that.
okay.
We crave emotional connection with our partners. Anybody
You
else who says otherwise is a fool or a liar.
The other night I was talking with Mark. Oh, what's Mark's last name? Um, he's a musician, and he's played with Yolanda Adams, and he's currently on tour um, with Will Downing. But he was telling me that he is in a men's group, and a lot of men were saying that they don't feel love, that they never felt loved before.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they failed to make that connection,
Right.
or failed to realize they need that connection.
Well, sometimes men don't feel like they've been authorized to.
Okay, explain.
Well, men aren't taught to connect emotionally with their partners. We're taught to protect them, defend them, provide for them, give them what they need. So we talked briefly about it numerous times, but there's this concept of stage one and stage two relationship dynamics, right?
Mhm.
You have role partner versus soul partner.
Mhm.
Now, pre 1900s, you were in that stage of the role partner. What role can this partner play in my life? Can they protect? Can they provide? Can they give me security? Are they going to give me good, healthy children? And then
Mhm.
on the other hand, for women, men looked at them. Can she be a good woman? Can she cook? Can she raise my children right? Can she hold down the fort when I'm not home? Because life sucked pre 1900s. Life was
Mhm.
rough. It was cruel. It was difficult. It took a team to make it through, and it took a team to get your children to survive through that time too.
Okay.
But when we moved into the 1900s and femininity really kind of kicked in, women's suffrage, women's rights, we brought women into the 20th century together, right, as a nation and as a society, but we left men behind. emotionally, we left men behind. And so we never transitioned from the role stage to the soul stage.
Okay.
So men have been taught, and even I would even risk and go so far as to say we have been socialized from birth to expect this certain relationship expectation that you're not going to care about how I feel. You need me to hold down the fort. You need me to protect and provide for my family. So we're not taught that there's supposed to be some kind of emotional relationship with our partners. You know, our requirements are purely physical because we don't. First of all, we've never been taught that there is anything else that we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also taught that the only thing we're good for is, and the only thing that we're good enough to request is sexual gratification. Now, I can't find anything in my mind that is more cruel to a human spirit than those kind of low expectations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a mischievous video. I'm going to tell you that up front.
Okay.
But I want to try to share it, and I just want to get your feedback on it. Hold on.
Sure.
Let's see how technically savvy I can be.
Am I
Hold
skinny?
on.
Mama,
Can you see that?
You ain't gotta go over and hug me and tell me that. I know you said
that?
I'm pretty, but what do you
Yes
consider me
or
to
no?
be? Am I skinny?
Let's see.
Am I
All right,
fat?
yeah, I think you can
What do
see.
you consider me?
You are getting fat, but I love you. I'm just saying you are getting a little fat.
All right, maybe.
Okay, so you don't want a girl my size.
No. What?
I'm just saying.
I love you. I'm just saying
No,
you're
baby.
getting a little bigger, like bigger from you. Getting like fat. You getting big, like that. Yeah.
You want a light skinned girlfriend, or you want a black, or you want a chocolate girlfriend like you?
Oh yeah, I want some chocolate girlfriend. A sexy chocolate girlfriend.
You want her to be skinny, or you want her to be thick, or you want her to be fat, or you want
No. I want a skinny.
So you want her skinny?
Yeah, a skinny girlfriend.
What do you consider mommy? Do you consider mommy? What is mommy?
Look at his face. Uh-oh. You already know what's about to happen. You know she ain't skinny.
Am I skinny?
Mama, you pretty.
It was at that moment he knew he effed up.
Tell me that. I know you said I'm pretty, but what do you consider me to be? Am I skinny? Am I fat? What do you consider me?
You are getting fat, but I love you. I'm just saying you are getting a little fat.
Okay, so you don't want a girl my size.
No.
What?
I'm just saying.
I love you. I'm just saying
No,
you're
baby.
getting a little bigger, like bigger from you. Getting like fat. You getting big, like that. Yeah.
You want a light skinned girlfriend, or you want a black, or you want a chocolate girlfriend like you?
Oh yeah, I want some chocolate girlfriend.
I am dying. Okay, so in this video, physicality seems to be very important from the commentator as well as the son.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not gonna criticize the mother at all. I mean, there's nothing there to criticize, but I do want to bring up the fact that there was no talk about, do you want a nice girl? Do you want a girl that respects you, that loves you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? You could take that whole conversation that they had right there and turned it completely around in that mirror and been like, you know, do you think mommy deserves a man that loves her and respects her and is, you know, good to her? Oh yeah. Would you rather mommy be with a man who's fat but treats mommy right, or would you rather have you know, a man in mommy's life who looks really good but is mean? I guarantee you that kid would be like, I would rather have the fat dad. I want my mom to be treated right.
I would say that, but I would also, I mean, I'm just being, listen, there's so much wrong with that video that it just makes you shake your head, right?
Yeah.
Because it is appealing to so many wrong stereotypes. I mean, do you want a light-skinned girlfriend or a dark skinned girlfriend or whatever word that she said.
She used chocolate.
And then he goes, I want a sexy chocolate girlfriend like me. I mean, the thrill, the thrill. I mean, I'm glad that he is appreciating black women and not going, ew,
Yeah.
they have black skin. So that's beautiful, right? I'm happy about that. But further, in somebody so young, already sifting, that quality out. And then there's the sifting of the body type out, and that is already in his
Right.
his mindset. He already has his preferences.
Well, you've what you've done is you've actually set him up for a type of failure that he doesn't even know is there. And the reason why I say that, and bear with me for a second, so 50% of our population is women, roughly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But only 13% of our population is racialized as black.
Mm-hmm.
Only half of that is female,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you've got roughly 6.5% are female. Now you take another half of that because some of them are either married or in older age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that only leaves you half of the population of that half that are female and single. And now you need to half that again because some of those women are going to be gay or lesbian, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be in committed relationships but not married. They're going to be single mothers that they never get to meet out on at a club or at the normal places that you would meet a partner, right? So this kid is looking at maybe 2% of the black population that's available to him.
Mm-hmm.
So you've given this child a very small percentage chance. Oh, and on top of that, you have to meet someone who has the same values as you. So I mean, like what he's looking for, because it's been whittled down from 50% of the population down to 13% of the population down to 6% of the population down to 2% of the population. That kid's going to be searching the rest of his life for a mate. But what if his partner could be Asian
Mm-hmm.
and fulfill all his physical and social needs? There's a lot in that just that little teeny conversation that has massive consequences further on down the road for him as a young man.
Mm-hmm. I had a gentleman on here, about maybe feels like 2 weeks ago, and he was definitely dead set on the idea that he needed to marry a black woman so that they could understand his journey
Mhm.
as a black man. And perhaps that's true, perhaps that's not. But my thought process is that you need someone who is going to understand and empathize with your journey. That person does not necessarily have to be the same race issue. They do
Yeah.
need to understand and empathize with your journey. Part of my mindset is, if, like, during the time of George Floyd, okay, and everybody was, I don't know, kind of on edge, and there was there, some people got way more comfortable saying racialized comments,
Yeah.
during that period. So if I'm a black female and I'm really going through it, and you're a black male and you're really going through it, to me that creates even greater tension. Now that within the household, and there's not a shoulder to lean on. Maybe we can cry together, but at the same time we're experiencing the exact same thing. I only
Yeah.
bring that up because sometimes if there is, like, if a white male and a black woman were together, you know, there is a release because they're not experiencing the same kind of pain.
Well, there's an emotional safe space.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if you've got two people that are going through what I would say are similar racial discrimination experiences, both of you are hyper aware and hyper stressed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes ignorance is bliss because you can go home to the one and you don't have to worry about that. He's good. He's not bothered. You know, he's living his life and you know, you got a head to shoulder. You know, you got a shoulder to cry on, or you've got a form of escapism or comfort that you might not otherwise have. I could see that argument. I would not make that argument myself, but I could see someone making that argument. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying either one is right. What I'm saying is,
right.
It doesn't, having a person that is the same race as you does not automatically equal the best
right.
scenario. That's
right,
what I'm
right.
saying.
Right. That's an unrealistic expectation.
You know,
because again, this is something that goes into, you're not seeing the human being behind
Mm-hmm.
the skin, right? Like this is the problem with as yeah, and you know my views on race. Like this is the problem with using race as the modifiers, that you're not seeing the human being below it, right? You're seeing something superficial. You're seeing something, and I don't mean superficial in the sense that it doesn't have consequences. I'm saying superficial in the sense that I know Coach Love to be an amazing, loving, beautiful, kind person who has gone out of her way to help men, to help women, to have good conversations, deep conversations. How much of that am I supposed to place on your skin color?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like without skin color, you're an amazing person. With skin color, you're still an amazing person. So really, where's the modifier at? You get what I'm saying? That's my point.
Yes. I definitely get that. I think we struggle with putting race in the proper context because it is such a made up thing. It is completely made up. That said, because it's made up, it exists.
Yeah.
You know, because perception is reality.
Right.
You know,
I would argue with that just a little bit, but I get where you're going with that, and I can tag along.
You know, I can't think of the gentleman's name but he was from Portugal. Do you know his name? The gentleman who created this whole race dynamic.
So you had a couple, but you had Christoph Blumenbach, and you had Johann Meyer, I believe, or Johann Blumenbach and Christian Meyer, and they both played a role using phrenology, or the study of the bumps on your head.
Mm-hmm.
There was another guy from Portugal. He had a really interesting name. It was like Zaza or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I always have a hard time remembering what his name is. But there's during that whole so the 1600s was actually, you know, the beginning of the Enlightenment era, and it was actually called the long 16th century, because so much Enlightenment philosophy came out of the 1700s and close to 1800s. So it was considered the long 16th century. But that's where unfortunately the Enlightenment got it wrong, was the philosophies of race and how they were constructed. But there was probably four. Well, no, I can tell you there's exactly at a minimum 3 men that really created the modern philosophies of races, how we use it and structure it today. But there were numerous ones that held the same opinions. I believe John Locke was fairly racist. I mean, even in his own right, Abraham Lincoln was very racist.
Mm-hmm.
There's numerous accounts of him being very discriminatory.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a pervasive part of life back then. You know, it was you know, if you're not taught any differently, how do you know any differently? because even in the Bible, it manifests in the Bible. It's actually sanctioned in the Bible. So if it's sanctioned by God, I mean, who's to question God? You know, and so unfortunately, what was in the Bible was manipulated to be used to endorse slavery, because in the Bible time, slavery had nothing to do with the value of the human being, because race had nothing to do with the value of the human being. So even in ancient Greece, up until the 1500s, race was considered kinship relationships, location, faith. So faith, kinship, location. There was a few other aspects of what would be considered race. It was used as a descriptor of what the person basically held as what was common to most of the people in their region, right? And so this concept of inferiority and superiority didn't come along until Blumenbach and Meyer.
Okay.
In the 15 and 1600s.
So who was the gentleman who had who put forth race as it related to Africa?
To what?
As it related to war with Africa. Who was that gentleman? Do you know that off the top of your head? This is what you get for being so smart. I think you know everything.
Well, no, I actually I can see his face, but I can't remember what his name was.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is. Do you remember it?
No.
Because there was one guy from Portugal who was he was a real douchebag when it came to it. But Blumenbach Blumenbach did build on his work, and Blumenbach is really where we got really kind of a more solidification of the inferiority superiority complex within the modern concept of race. Yeah.
Okay. As I understand it, the original guy who created it because he wanted to demonize the people from Africa. Essentially, is what the goal was there.
Well, I have to admit my apprehension at talking about it, because it is such a vile and disgusting philosophy that it makes me feel uncomfortable in my own skin.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was horrible. It was atrocious. You know, the guy's making an argument that by the slope of your head, by the width of your eyes or nostrils or skin tone, denoted how intelligent you were.
Oh, with that guy, he was the.
He argued that racialized black folk deserved to be enslaved.
Well, I think we're talking about two different people.
Okay.
And I know who you're talking about. You're talking about the guy who studied the people from Caucasia.
Yeah. Well, Blumenbach said a lot of the same things, but I'm trying to. I can figure this out in like 5 seconds. Give me a second.
Okay. Meanwhile, I think we might have someone that wants to make a comment, but I have to check to make sure that I am correct. So, do. Hold on, family, while we check into a few things. I feel like I ought to be playing some kind of music at this waiting. Okay. Michelle, I think you had a comment you wanted to share.
I was saying, when we were talking about how we're categorizing how we depict relationship or whatever based on ethnicity, I think that no matter what race you are, we can all have a experience of the same, at the same time, the same way, but it's how we react to that experience that categorize us, and people put us in compartments based on how our reaction is. to that experience.
Okay.
Absolutely. That is my theory of race lining right there. That's what she's explaining is exactly the terminology that I coined when I coined race lining, is using phenomenology and how we look and expecting a certain sociological response to that, to push them into our box.
Every day we put our pants on the same way. We all bleed the same. All of that, but it's not the experience that divide us. It's the reaction.
Okay. So I want to ask both of you this question. Skin color often makes people treat others as if they're less than human.
That's a learned behavior.
Yep, I would agree. If I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Michelle.
Michelle, have you ever heard of George Schuyler?
Don't believe I have.
Okay, if you could do me a favor, if you're willing to, look up Google George Schuyler, the Negro Art Hokum.
Okay.
This is an article that he wrote in the early 1900s. And I believe it's about the third paragraph down. He goes into detail about the difference between white and black people. And what he said in there is white and black people are exactly the same people. They go home, they read the same newspapers, they buy the same clothes, they love their kids the same, they eat the same foods. The only difference is when they come into contact with each other. Because it was a learned behavior to treat other people differently, when in all reality, we behave exactly the same as the other people when we're not around them. It's a really fascinating article.
When was this written?
What's the name of that again? I'm sorry.
The Negro Art Hokum.
Okay.
Hokum is spelled H-O-K-U-M. And this was during the Harlem Renaissance.
Okay. Excellent.
And he was black and conservative. I don't know if that matters to anybody, but
No, it doesn't.
I gain knowledge wherever I can get it. Liberal, conservative, in the middle, Christian, atheist. I'm not discriminatory in any way. As a matter of fact, that's a picture of him right there.
Okay.
All right.
And that's so that's how you spell his name. S-C-H-U-Y-L-E-R.
She's got him. She's got him.
All right. And it's pronounced Schuyler, but that's how it's spelled. It's spelled kind of weird.
I'm gonna put a mark next to this to hold this for me.
And if you want to know about the history of race as it was seen in the ancient world, that's a good book right there.
You probably could find those names that we're looking for in that book, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, Michelle. We'll talk with you next time.
Thank you, Michelle.
You guys are welcome.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
She sounds absolutely delightful.
She is delightful. She is delightful. So I am curious about what happened. We're on race, so I'm going to kind of stay on race, but I want to bring up what happened with the young lady who told Black men that they needed therapy. Did you get an opportunity to check out that article by chance?
I did not. I'm actually reading it as we're talking.
Okay. You know what? You can share it on screen if you want a little bit of it.
Well, I can actually speed read. So it's actually, I'll be done here in just a brief minute if you want to just talk for a minute or two.
You speed read, and I am going to actually share a little bit of the article with everyone. The article is by Greg Matos, and it's in Psychology Today, and it simply talks about the rise in loneliness in single men. The fallout from this particular article is unbelievable. This poor man.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, this poor man has gotten allegedly, I have to say allegedly, has gotten death threats. A young lady by the name of Shabree Rawls, she has gotten fired from her job.
Wow.
Her job. She's 28 years old, and she's a Black therapist. Now, admittedly, she was animated in her delivery, but if you follow her, you would know that all of her commentary is animated. And then the Manosphere itself is very frustrated because
Yeah.
there was this idea that there is um, a a different education dynamic, or deficiency, that's the word, deficiency, between women and men when it comes to being emotionally responsible and empathetic.
Yeah.
And so this article, it's just it's not even very long.
No, it's like it's really like I've never written an article that short in my life.
Uh-huh.
Like, and you've read my work, and my work is way more sketchy than that. Like,
Right.
what was it, my first article I ever wrote for Wrong Speak? The very first sentence is, "I am a white supremacist."
Uh-huh.
I got so much trash for that. And now, for the viewers that are listening, I wrote the article from the perspective of someone who was a white supremacist. I am not myself white supremacist. That would hopefully be clear by the fact that I'm here. So, just so everybody's aware.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Look at your hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. But I digress. What is this? What is it about this article that
I think I know.
What is it? Help.
There's a couple of things. One is the societal relationship between men and society, meaning men feel, or society is not comfortable when they realize that the mass majority of their male society isn't capable of doing the simplest of things.
Okay.
We've learned to rely on men so much that we've taken them for granted.
Okay.
So when the male side of society has broken down, now we're looking at everybody else being like, well, now what do we do? So that anger is represented and unfortunately misrepresented outwards as hatred. That's one aspect that I would say is definitely a possibility. The other aspect is people don't want to know how bad men have it, because that's not the narrative that we're told. We're taught that women are oppressed, and to some degree they are, and we've talked about this. Women still struggle with a lot of discrimination, especially in the medical industry. I won't even get started on that because I get so furious that I just start spitting words. But I get so furious because my wife had problems with the medical industry and some of the other things, and I have had no problems. And these are hardcore, like, these are specific things. This is not just anecdotal. There's widespread evidence that women are discriminated frequently in the medical industry, and no doubt racialized Black women have it by far the worst. The child mortality rate is ridiculous in racialized Black women. Yeah, it's really bad. So there's no doubt that discrimination still exists for women, but the lie that we were sold is that men don't face discrimination at all. Like, I don't think people understand society does not like men and women. They really don't. Like, we don't want to hear how bad you have it. We don't want to hear how bad men have it, because that would threaten my status, or I don't want to hear how bad women have it because that would threaten my status. So you have a bunch of people fighting over something instead of actually addressing the problem. It's like, men are committing suicide at 4 times the rate as women. Why does that have to look bad on women? Because women are still committing suicide. Like, we can have that conversation. Let's stop suicide with women. Let's stop suicide with men. But you have to address them separately. They are not the same issue, right? So we can have that conversation, but we have to be honest with ourselves. And this is the conversation that isn't happening in the broader range of society.
You want to know something?
You should have 10 million viewers, by the way.
Oh, they're coming. They're coming.
Yeah.
One at a time, but they're coming, right?
Yeah.
It's like expecting a rich person not to have problems. Money is not a fix-all.
Right.
Robin Williams committed suicide.
Yeah.
He was on top of the world, but he had an illness that overwhelmed him.
I believe it
And
was called Lewy body dysmorphia,
no,
something like that.
Lewy body syndrome, and it was a type of
Yeah.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And he committed suicide. Rich people commit suicide all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And,
Boy, that's yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, people say, well, money is, you know, money's nice to have. Obviously, it makes life easier. Like I have a roof over my head. I'm not sleeping in a cardboard box. But what people don't understand, especially about the super wealthy, is that those people had the majority of those people had to work pretty hard to get that money. But on top of that, if you're a celebrity, it's 10 times worse. Because you can't, the amount of solitary confinement away from society is so massive. They spend so much time alone. They can't go to the store without, you know, they can't go to the store to buy a pack of cigarettes without getting mobbed by 80 people, right? You cannot live an emotionally healthy life under that kind of duress constantly. Just not possible, right? So when people talk about the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, the celebrity, they don't talk about the tough things that come with those, the price that comes with that celebrityism. When you're talking about the ultra wealthy, you're talking about people who, if they make even one slight mistake, they can lose billions of dollars, if not all of it. You know what I mean? You can still go to prison if you're a billionaire. And then what good is the $1 billion that you have? It's not worth the paper that it's written on.
I don't know if I believe that, you know, what is this gentleman's name?
Well, I'm just saying that we need to look at it from different perspectives instead of just the complex theory.
And he committed suicide. Do you know
what James McAfee?
Yeah, is it Overstock or what's the...
So James McAfee created McAfee Security.
Bed Bath & Beyond. Sorry, Overstock.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Overstock.com, he has a different thing going on. The guy from Bed Bath & Beyond committed suicide. And it was basically because he stopped doing such a good job, you know?
Yeah.
And so his values were completely out of line. And he had been abusing his wealth, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, lavish this, lavish that, and he really could not afford it. I bring this up because just because you have money does not mean that you don't have problems. Now, you might have different problems, but you don't have the same problems. Okay.
Right.
I'm not saying, I don't know if I said that right, but I kind of got lost. My point is we have to have a mental toughness in order to be able to navigate a particular situation. So a butterfly, this is going to sound so crazy, but walk with me here.
Okay.
A butterfly has to struggle to get out of its cocoon. Okay. If the butterfly does not struggle to get out of its cocoon, it will not be strong enough to fly. Okay. That's how it gains its strength. Okay. So when a rich person tells a poor person their problems, the poor person is like, that's not hard. What is your problem? You've got it made, you know? Yeah. And so what the rich person needs, and sometimes they need to gain some coping skills. All right. Not saying that men's problems aren't the same as women's problems, but they don't have to have that same coping skill. You know, it's like they are not accustomed to the struggle. So
Yeah.
very important. I think they need to be heard. I think that our society as a whole is going to be in jeopardy. He's still there, guys. There will be in jeopardy if we don't listen to men's problems. Um, but I don't think they, I do not think they have the weight of the journey for women. You know,
I think I think I'm understanding, but can you say that again?
yeah, I struggled with that, but basically, men need to be heard. Men need to be seen. Men need to be loved. Men need to be recognized. Okay. At the same time, if they had to live as women, they would go nuts. Maybe that's the best way to say it. If
You know,
if white men had to live as black women, they would all commit suicide. They were like, I'm done. It's over. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I totally understand that. And oh, what was it? Oh my gosh, what was the name of the book? Oh, good grief. There was a woman who spent significant amount of time as a man, as a an experiment. And she presented herself as a gay man, started going to bowling alleys, joined a bowling league, did masculine things. All the guys, just thought he was gay. But what she found was that life as a man is so hard and it's so depressing because the problems are not the same that she was used to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the problems that you have as a woman they might be specific to women, and they might be very, very difficult. And the problems that a man might have might be male specific, and they may be very, very difficult. The problem that we have is the behavior of trying to compare the two against each other.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to. This is a fallacy of a false dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
We can both have significant issues on both of our sides, and we can work towards it. We can work towards solving them together. Like, I want to end medical discrimination for women. Women should hopefully work towards men's discrimination in mental health, because men's discrimination against men in mental health is a serious issue.
I think that is one of the most dangerous issues that we have globally.
Right.
Not just in America, but globally.
Yeah. Let me share something for you. This should properly piss you off. So where did I put it? Oh yeah. So you know me, I get bored and I read studies.
Right.
Now, something that I need to mention here, Dr. Lay is somewhat correct about body count. However,
okay.
However, it goes both ways. A multivariate study done, I believe, in 2017. I believe it was the University of Philadelphia, did a study of, oh man, it was a big number too. It was a big pool. I think it was like 13 to 1500 people. And they tracked and mapped the relationships of people depending upon how many people they had slept with. And they found that the more people that you slept with, the higher the probability that you will divorce later.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, they found that the longer that you live with someone before you get married, the higher likelihood of being divorced is as well. I would love to see how that evidence actually plays out, like in real time. But so what I did was I read the entire chapter, or the entire brochure on the American Psychological Association's APA guidelines for psychological practice with men and boys.
Okay.
And here's what they had to say. This is very, very interesting. Let me see if I can find it really quick. So they go on to say, where is it? So basically in there they say men have privilege, right? Men are privileged. Why does that have anything to do with how you're going to treat me? Why does that have anything to do with how you're going to treat my PTSD? It shouldn't even be in this list, right? But then they go on to say, boys and men experience gender role strain when they A, deviate from or violate gender role norms of masculinity, B, try to meet or fail to meet norms of masculinity, C, experience discrepancies between real and ideal self-concepts based on gender role stereotypes, D, personally devalue, restrict, or violate themselves, E, experience personal devaluations, restrictions, violations, and or personally devalue, restrict, or violate others because of gender role stereotypes. That tells me what gender role strain is having a misconception of what masculinity is supposed to be. What they just described there was what you would consider male toxicity, toxic masculinity. Why is that in there? Why are we addressing male toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity is nowhere to be found in any literature, anywhere for any study. Why are you putting it in the APA's guidelines on psychological treatment for men and boys? But then it gets worse. It gets worse. Hold on. So, research, excuse me. Research suggests that socialization practices that teach boys from an early age to be self-reliant, strong, and to minimize and manage their problems on their own yield adult men who are less willing to seek mental health treatment. Further complicating their ability to receive help, many men report experiencing gender bias in therapy. It goes on to say, indeed, therapists' gender role stereotypes about boys externalizing behaviors may explain why boys are disproportionately diagnosed with ADHD compared to girls. Other investigations have identified systemic gender bias towards adult men in psychotherapy and in other helping services such as domestic abuse shelters. Broader societal factors such as the stigma of seeking psychological help also negatively impact men's help-seeking behaviors and the subsequent delivery of psychological services.
So does that basically say that men don't go get help when they need to?
Yeah, it's basically a long way of saying that. And then they go on to admit that men are 40% more likely to commit suicide. I'm not seeing a whole lot of that male privilege that they were talking about earlier. It's a very confusing guideline. It makes no sense.
Why?
After you get past that part, it's actually fairly clinical and specific and actually plays out with standard psychological models. But that first part was, I called a friend of mine. I was in tears, absolutely enraged. I was pretty done at the end of that day.
Do you think that it has something to do with, well, I know it does because you said it does based off of the research, the tools that people are taught and the expectations of what's supposed to, happen. If you believe that you are going to experience a certain amount and a certain type of suffering that is already that's already baked in. Women understand, we don't like it, but we understand and believe that every month torture is going to happen. And no one goes off the rails. You just plow through it, and it
Yeah.
is expected. But if you don't expect this mental or emotional torture to happen to you, then it hits you very differently.
Yeah. Well, what that last little bit says in there, if you were paying attention to it, it basically says that men are socialized from a young age not to rely on anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So when something happens, and this is the sick kind of twisted trap that we get caught in as men, is I was taught not to ask for help. I was taught to be self-reliant. Something happened that I don't know how to control. I don't know how to deal with, but I can't rely on other people because I was taught to not rely on other people. Therefore, I'm just going to have to live with this thing, and it's going to continue to be a problem in my life because I'll never seek out the psychological help, but I can't be self-reliant on others to help me try and get through it. Like, you see the rhythmic kind of circular reasoning here.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mention the fact that boys are socialized from birth in different ways. Like boys, and there was a study done again that found that boys are 30% less likely to be picked up when they're crying by their parents than their siblings, their sibling counterparts that are female.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I can go on all night. So I apologize.
I mean, we have to stop doing that to our
What,
boys.
going on all night?
No. But we have to stop doing that to our boys. It's the parents. We have to stop doing that. So Generation X, if we could, knock it off.
So I think it's possible to maintain what that says, which, because being self-reliant is important to a healthy mind frame. Like, to not, because if we don't teach people, boys and girls alike, if we don't teach them to be self-reliant, they will become codependent. So we have to have a certain degree. I think the reason, the point I'm trying to make here is that there's an internal psychology that we can teach our children, and there's an external understanding of psychology that we can teach our children. So I'm teaching my son, you need to be emotionally and intellectually strong. You have to hold yourself together. No one is responsible for your life. You are responsible for your life. However, it's okay to express yourself. It's okay to express your frustration. It's okay to ask for help when you can't do it on your own. That last part's the part that we failed. We have failed as a society to add that last part. Right?
And
so we've never empowered boys to say, I need help, but we've always empowered them to say, I don't need it. And the advice is in the wrong place. It's in the wrong proportions. It's in the wrong locations. And the way that we're treating it isn't correctly.
This is so random, but I have to say it because I love him so much. One of the cutest things that I've ever heard my nephew say was, Auntie, can you help me? He used to say that, but he used to say hope, not help. Hope. Random. Anyway.
Yeah.
It was so sweet to my ears. And just hearing you say that just makes me, he's grown up to be such a beautiful young man. He's definitely not afraid to ask for help. And he always kind of really understood his own boundaries. And so I admire that about him very much.
Boundary setting is something that boys don't know how to do either.
Tell me about that.
So, well, for example, I've been at numerous parties in my life and have been groped or otherwise molested by multiple women. But I never thought anything about it. I've literally had women come up and grab my junk before. I've actually had women come up and grab my junk in front of my wife.
What?
Yeah, not even kidding. I've had girls come up and flirt with me in front of my wife. Now, if a man was to do that to a woman, he would get knocked out in 3 seconds flat. Like, if a dude came up and started hitting on my wife in front of me, he would not be awake for very long. Why is there that sexual double standard?
Well, you know what? I want to put a pin in this because I want to talk about the sexual double standard of when two people get drunk. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The male is punished. But I can't go there just yet because I don't want to forget to rewind back to the point where you were talking about um, the study where people who live together longer
Mhm.
they get divorced, and people who have um, a higher body count they get
Yeah.
divorced. This is a reality. Anybody who has more choices takes advantage of more choices. I
Yeah.
don't, right. It doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the the body count, but make a lot of if you make a lot of choices, you just uh that's your way. There's a lot of options. Just the more options you have, the more undecisive you are,
Absolutely.
you know. And
Go into a candy store sometime and just try to pick out one piece of candy.
exactly. And basically, that's the exact same thing. So anytime there's more options, you're going to have less commitment. Quite honestly, that's what's
Yeah.
going on today with the Bumble and the Tumble and whatever all these swipe rights, all of this. You get people who are serial daters.
I call it the Tinderizer.
Oh,
Dating apps, like the collection of datings out there, dating apps, I just call them the Tinderizers.
right. Because you can only make a decision long enough to decide that you don't like it.
Well, it's bargain bin like meat. How would you put it? It's bargain brand. Sorry.
Bargain basement.
How did I say that earlier today? Bargain bin pricing at the meat market.
Okay.
Literally, that's what that is. That's what Tinder is. Because, and I apologize. I don't mean to. I think I took up time where you were trying to say something.
Well, I was just going to say you cannot make a decision that is where you're going to invest in it. People don't make enough of an investment to have skin in the game to make them commit. So that's the issue. It's not necessarily the body count per se. Now, someone
Yeah.
can have a high body count, but then they can also decide, hey, it is time for me to make a deep investment in my future. So therefore, I am going to commit, and I'm going to do what it takes in order to stay married. So
Yeah.
for me, when I listen to that number, it doesn't automatically say, oh, people who live together are going to get divorced, or people who um, have slept with a lot of people are going to get divorced. What it says to me is, are you going to invest or not invest?
Right. Well,
So,
and I think that's kind of what that article was touching on when he was like 62 to 65% of Tinder users are male. And the loneliest group of people on Tinder are men between the ages of 25 and 45, if I remember correctly.
mhm.
Um, and that's true. And surprisingly enough, that's the age group that's at most risk of suicide as well.
Mm-hmm.
It directly correlates with the literature that I've read so far on male suicide. And what's so specific about that age group, if you think about it? This is the age group where the majority of men are getting divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've lost their wife, they've lost their children. Chances are they've lost their home, they've lost a quarter of their income. They're
Mm-hmm.
living in a shitty ass apartment. They
Mm-hmm.
have no one that loves them. Their children probably hate them. Right? These guys have nothing to live for except for some weekend, rompus room fun. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing in there with any what you would call any kind of deep spiritual connection with another human being.
Okay, so let's talk about Rat Park. Because if you don't make a connection, if you don't make a connection, then you are never going to be satisfied. And so
Yep.
Johann, what's his last name? What's the
Johann
other?
Hari.
Yes. He has this beautiful TED talk about people who, well, actually he's talking about rats, but rats who are given cocaine. Was it cocaine or heroin? Whatever.
Cocaine in the water. They had complete access to as much food as they wanted. They had all the food, all the water, all the cocaine, fluoridated water they wanted. They had a bunch of they had a bunch of mats that they could sleep on. Life was cozy, and they devolved into murder and to suicide, debauchery, and eventually they deteriorated into the point where the rats weren't even socializing. They would just stay in their pen and sleep all night.
Right. Right. But once they had connection, then all of those bad behaviors went away and they no longer wanted the cocaine water.
They started to act as a team. So what they found was that this was a study directed towards how we view addiction, right?
Right, exactly. But I believe this. I think it's part of the same thing.
No, I'm not I'm right there with you. I agree 100%
Okay.
that this is a direct correlation between what we need as society is a society that is connected, interconnected with each other, working towards goals. Because what they found were the rats, because food was scarce, the water was definitely not lined with cocaine, but food was scarce, comfort was scarce. So what they found were the rats were working together to make life more comfortable for every other rat in there, and it became more of a community. I believe that they actually did have the water was laced with cocaine, and then
Yeah,
they had water that wasn't.
correct.
And the rats stopped drinking the cocaine laced water, started drinking the regular water, started
Exactly.
functioning as a society, started team building. They started pair bonding. They started making more babies. They started having more sex. They started having better relationships with the other rats. There was less fighting, less murder, less suicide. It was amazing. It's an amazing study.
Exactly. So when there is connection, real connection, empathetic connection,
Yep.
emotional connection, then the rats don't want to be high. When there is a lack of connection, the rats just want to be high, and they don't they don't care, and they're okay with
Yep.
just zoning out. So this age bracket that commits suicide, these people who are having greater loneliness, we have to raise their emotional intelligence and ability to
This is where Dr. Lay comes in.
yes.
Yep. So Dr. Lay is doing what Dr. Lay is taking up the slack in the rat park.
Yeah.
So what we've got is we've got men who have never been trained and taught to be emotionally available partners in a healthy relationship. So what he's doing is he's saying, guys, we need to get with the party here. We need to get with the program. He's pulling men in from the role partner into the soul partner relationship. Like, that is phenomenal work, and this is one of the reasons why I love him. I know what he's doing. I don't know if he's aware of the repercussions of his actions are, but he is going to change the entire face of dating. He's going to change the entire face of the way that society has deep, meaningful connections with their partners. Like, I'm not sure he knows how important he is.
You know what? I think he does, and I think
I hope he does.
yeah. He's writing a children's book, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's starting at that level, because he wants to not fix people after they're broken.
Right. Yeah.
Because a lot of his patients, once they come to him, they're like in CPR mode.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they're on life support.
They're on life support, and he's trying to, help people make healthy connections. As a matter of fact, there's a through line to this, because he works with he works with the police departments. Okay. That lack of empathy, actually causes people to get shot.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the issue. So he told me about this ride along that he made. And the person was in a all black neighborhood. He was a white officer, but the difference was the officer was invested in the community. And Dr. Lay was in the car, and a gentleman was riding up on this particular guy. The guy had on a hoodie, and he was kind of, walking, and it was late at night. And before he even got to him, he called out his name. He was like, "Hey, so and so, your mom is going to want you home. I know she doesn't know you're out here." So even from behind, with the hoodie on, based off the way this guy was, kind of his
Every guy has a specific walk.
He knew exactly that was, and he knew his mother's expectations. And Dr. Lay said he was blown away. He was blown away. He said because that could have ended so differently. But because there was a human connection there, the officer had confidence in who this kid was, what the family expectations were, and it had nothing to do with skin color, all to do with connection.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why I detest conflict theory based programs that rely on power disparities and conflict, meaning because I'm white, we are I'm committing some kind of oppressive nature and abuse on you, right? Just being here. But that does not help human connection.
Pause. Wait a minute. What did you say?
Well, that's the basis. That's the idea behind conflict theory, is creating hierarchies of power disparities where there aren't any.
Okay, I don't know this theory.
Think critical race theory. Critical race theory is based off of conflict theory. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's components of conflict theory in critical race theory. It's this idea that all relationships are based on power dynamics. Right? It's another inferiority superiority complex that our society has an issue with. And it says, because I'm white, I'm racialized as white, that means I have privilege and power, right? Over you, my friend, Coach Erica Love, who I love and I respect and I adore. And I'm here because I love the things that you're doing, right? I'm at your mercy here. I'm on your show, right? If we were going by that conflict theory, we're not going to make a connection from one human being to another human being. We're not going to make those connections because there's so much between us. How can I connect with you as a human being if you constantly tell me I'm a horrible human being who is using my privilege to consistently oppress you? It's because they don't want people like me and you being friends. Plain and simple. When you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, they don't want me and you being friends, because an educated and well organized populace is the most dangerous thing to a compromised government, to a compromised society. We are the things that are the most dangerous obstacle that we can take kingdoms down.
Well, I will tell you this. The rest of the world has tuned into America's racial disparity problem.
Oh God, yeah, we have. Yeah, they have. Yeah,
and they're using it against us. Now that is a fact, and a house divided cannot stand.
Right.
And so it doesn't keep me up at night, but it does concern me.
Yeah.
If we're so busy fighting ourselves, we'll never have time to fight anyone else.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the whole point with conflict theory, and that's what I'm trying to say is that I'm agreeing with you 100%, because if the whole idea is if we're busy fighting ourselves, we're not fighting them. Right? We're not, if we're busy fighting ourselves, we're not actually doing anything to end racism. As a matter of fact, we're actually propagating it and propelling it into the future for our children to have to deal with. So the whole construct is deeply flawed from the very beginning. The moment that I have to, or you have to see me as a different thing than other than a human being, capable of love and intimacy and genuine human connection and empathy and compassion and all the amazing things that make us unique human beings. Once we sever that link, that tie that binds all hearts together, it's easier to destroy us as a society. We've got to keep those knots, those. So if you think about it like this, we have strings that connect each human being through the heart. Through all of society, we're all interconnected with these strings that we can't see. But they connect us, they bind us together in a unified understanding of all humanity is created equal, right? But when we add scissors to that and we start cutting the strings between those people, we start to lose connection with them. We can't see them anymore. They're not in our system anymore. So what do? We just grab the nearest string and tie it onto ours, right? But eventually you're not going to be able to tie a very tight knot when all your string is nothing but knots. You know what I mean? So we're losing the capacity to connect with each other on the most basic fundamental levels. And this goes into the gender problem that we're talking about tonight, with men being very lonely. Women are lonely too, because if you read the book Miriam by Lori Gottlieb, women are incredibly lonely too. They're not having children because there's no man to have children with that they want to have relationships with. So I think I don't know why his article got so badly skewed in the public forum, but I guarantee you if he would write the same article about females, it wouldn't have gotten the same reaction, and it would have been just as heartbreaking, because women are suffering too.
Well, I will say this. The lonely old woman is commonly thought of in society. The lonely old man is not.
Yeah. Right.
What is this? It's one of my mother's favorite movies. It's a Christmas movie. Goodness
Give me the plot. I can give you a name. I'm really good with movies. Movies are one of my favorite pastimes.
Yes, and I can't believe. Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. There we go.
Oh yeah, it's my wife's favorite movie.
Yeah,
she's actually got a tattoo of "It's a Wonderful Life" on her arm.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. It's a wonderful. My mother loves this movie, and we watch it over and over again at Christmas, constantly. So in this movie, what happened to Mary? What happened to Mary? And the angel is, or the character is like, oh, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. It's bad. It's bad. What happened? She's a librarian. Good God. The horror. She's a lovely librarian.
Clutch my pearls and faint.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So that's already been out there. And then in the Manosphere, one of the things they say about women, you're gonna die all alone with cats. So that threat has already been out there for women, and either women are like, yeah, whatever, or they've accepted this whole idea of it, right? But the idea of a man being lonely, men can be lonely.
Yeah.
That makes them feel weak. And this threat that they've been using against women, oh my God, it's me too. Thank you. I had very good acting on my part. Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good. So let's just take one number from that article really quick, because I think this will show how specific my point is. So he said that 62% of the users on dating apps are men, right? That means 38% are women. That's not a small number. That's a massive number. That's nearly half the population of women. Nearly half the population on those websites are women. Women are pretty damn lonely too.
Yeah,
like let's round that up to 40%, right? Let's round that up to 40%. That's over a third of the users are women. Like that's ridiculous.
I will tell you the big difference between women and men in this particular scenario.
Sure.
Women connect with other women on an emotional level, and men don't do the same thing for men. That is really the big difference. Because even when a woman is alone, she still has her girls to connect with in a wholehearted way. Someone who is going to see her for who she is. She's like, girl, you're pretty. You're so smart. I'm so proud of you for what you're doing. Oh my God, girl, you had a hard day. Let's go out for drinks.
Yeah.
It will be perfectly fine for them to come over and actually lay on one another, cuddle with one another. And it has nothing to do with sexuality or anything like that.
Right.
But I can put
men don't do that.
Yeah, you can put your feet on mine. I'm going to put your feet on yours, and we're going to sit here. We're going to eat popcorn. We're going to watch this movie. Okay.
Yeah.
We are going to connect. All right.
Yep.
All right. Call me when you get home, sweetie. It's late.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. There's going to be a value statement in between those two women. Men don't for one another.
Hold on for a second. There's a book. Oh man! Oh, there it is. So this book actually has a lot to say about that.
Okay.
The Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Matos and Jonathan Haidt.
Okay.
And in that book, what he describes that is echoing what you're saying right now is that in the 90s we had it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are at? Right. You saw the advent of the helicopter parent. What happens when you take a child out of their social environments where they're not able to learn the rules of society? You have children who cannot connect, who have emotional disorders. You have situations where the socialization of children. So children learn the rules of the game when you're talking about the rules of life. Like they understand hierarchies. They understand what to do and what you can't do in social situations. Like you can't just go around punching kids, or else all the other kids will tell their parents and you'll have to leave. Right? You learn the rules of life from other children as well as adults. So when you have helicopter parents, you take all those kids out of those environments. They're losing the ability to make these connections with other children. They're losing the ability to connect with other children at a fundamental level. And then on top of that, you get into the digital age, the tech age. Now these kids are spending all of their time on social media. There's no rules on social media. You know what I mean? You can just, if you get in trouble with a group of friends, you'll go to Reddit and find another couple of friends, or you'll go to Tinder and you'll find another group of friends, right? And then you'll hang out with them. It's not a problem. No loss, no harm, no foul. So what you have is this culture of people who are attached to a phone, don't go outside, don't socialize, don't learn the rules of the game. They don't understand how to date. They have no idea what emotional pair bonding is. They don't understand how you can have a connection with another human being without something else being attached to it. We're constantly being told what red flags to look for, but every single one of these things is incorrect. Right? So what you've got a culture within a society that is almost seeming like it's invested in the failure of our future. We need to put the bloody phones down and go out and connect with human beings. You want a good date? Go take someone to the library. Wander around the book aisles, take a book out and be like, what do you think about this topic? Right? You can learn an incredible amount about someone just by asking them questions about their life, about their beliefs, and not being so judgmental. right? It's really amazing what we could do with ourselves and other human beings if we just put the bloody phones down for 5 minutes. Like, go into any restaurant and you'll see phones out.
Well, I would like men to invest in one another in a mental, emotional way. Perhaps men should take one another to the library.
I think we should.
Well, I mean, I think you would enjoy that.
Oh, I definitely would. You'd probably lose me. I'd be out somewhere reading.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Honestly, I will tell you one thing that I like about the Manosphere. Men connect, even though they participate in common enemy bonding, which I think is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Okay. What I like about the Manosphere is they connect. Now, if they could start connecting on something healthy, now we're cooking.
Right. Why are we not supporting male bonding ceremonies? Why? What I mean by that is, why are we not celebrating the journey into manhood from childhood?
So I don't know if you saw this show, but I had a show and it was all with men who were mentoring kids, and that was one of my biggest questions. It's like, what ceremonies can we create for American men so that they transition from childhood to manhood? My thought process is that it ought to be, kind of ratchet up,
If I remember your question specifically, your question was, how do we know when a boy becomes a man? I believe was your actual question.
That was in there, yeah. So how do we know? So what we do, let me get this out. In our society, what we do is we celebrate with drinking. Come on, let's go get drunk. You're 21. Let's get sloshed.
So we do have one of those, and I don't think it's very healthy. But the first time a boy loses his virginity, that's basically what it is.
I was going to talk about that too. We go out and we get our boys hookers.
I don't, but
I mean, the stuff that men do. I mean, that's,
Yeah, we don't have a lot of those out here in Utah, so.
Yes, you do. They're just in quiet corners.
No, we really don't. I have a friend who used to work undercover as a prostitute.
Really?
There's really not that many. There's a few, but there's really, I mean, not very many. But
Dry County.
The problem is that, that's not a, I think that's a really bad mark to be making as the transition into manhood.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it would be better if we got into fights. Test your mettle, test your ability, test your mental strength. Even better, see if you can talk his way out of the fight.
No, I think that would be better.
Because you have to connect with someone on a very interesting level to stop a fight from happening when they're already pissed off.
I would love us to have some kind of a coming of age cultural journey that we would make for men as Americans. That would be very nice.
There is one other one is in a lot of your more conservative areas. They have it where your movement from, or your transition from boyhood to manhood is done when your dad takes you on your first hunting trip.
Well, yeah, kind of, except that kids go hunting at 8.
Sure. They didn't used to. Well, I mean, they did used to, but we did start our boys on a young age into manhood. So in Utah, if I remember correctly, you can go hunting when you're 8. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think you can get a tag until you're like at a specific age. because it's actually illegal to own a firearm or fire a firearm when you're under a certain age. I think it's 12. I could be very wrong. Somebody can find out and correct me on that. But I know for a fact there's a minimum age to get a tag here in the state of Utah. But I know many of my friends, like the first time they take their sons camping and hunting, like that's exciting for them. That's like they're getting amped up for it because it's like my son's finally going to be a man. So that is one of the ways that we can transition boys from childhood to manhood. But I don't like the idea of having to kill something for the purpose of doing that. But there's got to be some way that we can help usher that transition as a general societal
we need
expectation.
To get there. We like if we had a president that actually put that into a societal norm, I would love it. And I don't want it to be all of one culture or all of this culture. It could be something really cool, like, you serve the nation in some way,
Right.
Like
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be interrupting. I get so passionate about this stuff. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I mean, like the Peace Corps was a great thing that Kennedy created.
Yeah.
But I really do think that we need something specifically for men that is not joining the military.
Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts.
You know what? I thought about that. It's tainted. It
is
tainted
badly.
So although I love it, it's just tainted. So many parents don't feel safe putting their kids in the Boy Scouts and things of that nature these days.
I mean, I'm an Eagle Scout. I bet you
Really?
bet you wouldn't have thought that. Yeah.
That's so cool.
But I think out of everything, though, I would like to see one thing very specific happen in our government.
What?
I would like to see a committee on boys and men. We have an organization of women. We actually literally have an organization of women listed as a actual government agency.
What's the name of it?
It's the Agency of Women and Girls. Oh, crying out loud. I'm going to lose my crap if I cannot remember that. Let's see here. The Women's Bureau.
Okay.
It's part of the U.S. Department of Labor. But we do not have. So we've got the HHS and Women's Health. So the Federal Women's Program, the Office Against the Office on Violence Against Women, or sometimes called VAWA. The Office of Global Women's Issues, Department of the State. Women and Gender and Public Policy. So we've got quite a number of women's departments in government, but to my knowledge, we have yet to have one that is focused on men and boys. Not one.
It would be really awesome if we started with men's mental health.
Well, interestingly enough, I was again reading studies, and I came across a study that I don't think that I've read a study that scared me as much as this one. And what it is it's a study of opposite molecular structures in men and women with major depressive disorders.
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, Steve?
Basically, it studies the chemical markers in the brain that are present when a woman or a man has major depressive disorder.
Okay.
And the way that we treat depression is, if I'm reading this article correctly, or the study correctly, has incredibly detrimental effects when we talk about how we medicate people with major depressive disorders.
Okay.
Because men and women manifest depression with different chemicals in the brain.
Okay.
like drastically different chemicals. And the way that depression, because of that, depression actually manifests somewhat differently, especially when you're involving medication into it. I'm trying to get it really quick here. But, oh, I didn't put the one that I actually had highlighted in here. So I'll just read you the last paragraph of the conclusion, which is, to conclude, our study reveals divergent corticolimbic molecular changes in men and women with MDD. That's major depressive disorder.
Okay.
Thus, it follows that potential novel treatments should also target sex-specific pathology. For instance, our results suggest that treatments that are treatments to suppress immune function might be more appropriate for men with MDD, while treatments which boost immune function might be more appropriate for women with MDD. What do you think would happen if we're mistreating men or women with the wrong medications?
So do you think that we are medicating men with women's medication?
I think it's possible we're doing both. I think we might be mistreating women with drugs that are better for men and men with drugs that are better for women. And that might be leading to an increase in male suicide. Because we hear all these stories all the time. My friend Chris is an example of this. He had just changed medications shortly before. He got up out of work, walked out of work, didn't even bother clocking out, drove directly to a pawn shop, bought a firearm, went up into the mountains and shot himself in the head. So we have no idea how the wrong medication is affecting people.
Right.
But this shines light on a little bit of it, and we can start making adjustments according to that. But I'm surprised this study isn't all over the news. Like, that scared the shit out of me, to be honest. Like, if you look at the...
When was that study done?
Let me get it for you real quick. It's fairly recent. 18th of July. Or, sorry, July 2018.
Oh, wow. It's kind of a long time ago.
This was not that long ago.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, for it not to have reached, a fever pitch, for it not to,
Right. So the interesting thing about this is this isn't just one study. This is a multivariate study, a multivariate analysis of multiple different studies from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 schools. So 10 educational departments at multiple different universities, including Toronto, Department of Biostatics, Graduate School of Public Health, University of Pittsburgh. There's like 20 pages of citations to multiple different doctors. I read it and I was glued to the pages because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I'm trying to find a graph that will actually show you what's actually happening, because there's one in here. I started keeping my studies instead of just reading them and discarding them. There they are. There they are. I forgot they were at the back. So the interesting thing about this is, out of the 4,300 genes that men have and the 3,855 genes that women have, only 476 are different.
Okay.
That's massive. That's a massive difference between men and women.
Why did you say only 476?
Well, because those are the only genes that cross over between both genders.
Okay.
So only 476 out of nearly 8,000 genes. So I found the diagram, so let me get it out for you real quick. So if you notice, It says disease effect. If you look at the top and bottom, I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
So there's nothing in the middle. Like nothing. There's
Right.
there's no crossover.
So what does this mean? What does this mean? Oh, that's really good. What does that mean?
So if you look at the X and Y axis, you'll see disease effect in women and disease effect in men.
Right.
You would think if I'm understanding this correctly, this is a very, very it denotes extremely specific and drastic differences between the male and the female brain.
Okay. Got it.
So what that is basically it's saying there's a massive difference between these two people. Like this specific thing right here is definitively affecting 100% of this population different than this population.
Okay.
So that's what scared the shit out of me, to be honest. To use blunt language, it scared the absolutely like living death out of me because I have not ever seen that. And I have yet to find any material that is actually addressing the questions that I have about that. So I would love to give that study to Dr. Lay when he has time to see if he wants to study it. But I'm not an academician. Like, I don't have the education to be able to study this correctly. So I reached out to Bradford and I had him take a look at it. And we both came, I pretty much had my conclusions were correct according to him. But I mean, these are not numbers you fool around with. Like, these treatments have to be very specific. So we'll see what happens with them. I'm going to be keeping my eye on that one.
It would be interesting for you to, you're good at writing letters and challenging things.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? What do you think about writing a letter to the New England Journal of Medicine about this?
I don't know why they would listen to little old me about it.
Why not?
I mean, I have to think that
you know what? It's just a question,
Yeah, well, I might be able to find somebody else. I mean, I've got pretty good connections everywhere. I might be able to find something, but yeah, just every time I think about that study, I don't know what happens to me. Yeah, it scares me, but there's something else that I have a hard time explaining what's going on in my chest. It's just so there's something else that was interesting in that study that I didn't mention, which was early and excessive introduction of testosterone into the female brain causes some interesting side effects. I need to read up on it more, but it was really interesting. It actually gives quite a bit of credence to the trans argument, where mentally they feel like they're in the wrong body. And it might be, if my hypothesis is that there's probably a correlation between early and aggressive interaction with testosterone in the female brain, and vice versa, too much estrogen in the male brain at during that formative child formation, brain formation in utero, that can probably have a pretty big effect on the brain and how it actually comes to identify with its gender and sexuality. I can't say anything concretely yet, but I have my sneaking suspicions. But
wow, that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
it really is. All right, this is my last question for the evening. Maybe,
sure.
Maybe
we'll see.
Yes, we'll see. But it's on a different subject matter.
Okay.
Do you believe that energy never dies?
I think the way that the question is posed is a little bit misleading.
Okay.
Energy
You
doesn't
rephrase it?
die. It just transforms into another form.
Okay, good. So yes, so we're on the same page.
So like if an apple drops on the ground, it decomposes. Decomposition creates heat. And then the nutrients also sink into the soil. So the energy is transmutating from one form to another form. So yeah, that's the best way I could put it.
So where do you think your energy came from that made you, and where do you think it goes when a human dies? Where do you think that?
Well, I'm of Carl Sagan's opinion that we are all made of stardust.
Stardust. Okay.
And I believe that the material that we're made of is the same material that the Earth is made of. We actually see a lot of the chemical makeup of the body is very similar to the chemical makeup of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where I'm going to go when I die is into the dirt.
But where's your energy going to go?
Into the dirt. My ashes will provide nutrients for the soil, for the bugs in the soil, for the grass, for the trees. My energy will be transformed into a natural ecosystem. It's an unfortunate reality that atheists have to come to, that we realize that there's nothing else past this. However,
I don't know.
There is something very unique that a lot of Christians don't give atheists credit for. And this was something that was very unique that I was not expecting. I hadn't heard about it. I hadn't read about it. I hadn't even discussed it or anybody else. But as soon as I made the full transition to atheism and I stopped thinking in religious terms, the level and depth of my appreciation for all life on Earth was overwhelmingly, and I'm not kidding when I use that word, it was overwhelmingly deep. I started to realize the value of myself, the value of my friends, the value of the very earth that I walk on. I realized that we need to work towards creating a more fair and just society so that we all get to have the enjoyment that we all deserve as human beings. I've even thought about going to vegetarianism, even though I love meat, because I really can't support the slaughtering of helpless animals. Because there's nowhere else that we go. You know what I mean? So the value that atheists have on life is actually massive.
But if their energy's not going to go anywhere, I mean, they could just regrow into another. The cow could become a human later on.
Well, let's look at energy as two different definitions of the same word. We can say energy as the substance of our existence, right? Or we can say energy is the substance of the chemical makeup of my body that will be returned into the dirt. Or we can take energy and say, is my energy going to be transformed into positive social action later on? Right. So there's several definitions of energy that we can be using here, and it's important not to make a false equivocation between those different different terms. What I think is my goal is, in my personal life, it's very different than my public life, but my public life, I want to make a discernible journey that creates more happiness for more people, gets men the representation that they deserve, women the justice that they deserve, children the justice they deserve, right? I found that when I became more atheist, I became more involved in my own life. Because and the best way I was able to describe it to another person who was Christian was, if we compare life to economics, right, to capitalism. We understand the thing that has scarcity has more value. That which doesn't have scarcity has less value because there's more of it. I can just go out and pick some more up, right? So the way that I look at it is, now that I don't have the infinite life that God promised me, right? Now that I'm an atheist, I realize that the amount of life that I have to live is a scarcity, and I need to use every single second of it because there's no more of it.
I received that. I actually understand where you're coming from with that because of the scarcity model.
Yeah.
What do you have anyone who has passed away that has, anyone that's passed away to you that meant a lot to you that you know really well? Maybe a family. I know you have a friend, your friend. But
yeah, family, friends, grandparents, yeah.
What if like a medium made an expression to you of a particular time or experience that you know there is no way that this person have any access to that information? What would you make of that?
I would wonder where I gave them clues. I distrust mediums. I really do.
I received that, but like,
here's the thing, though. I gotta be honest about this, though, Coach.
Okay.
I can't sit here and claim to know everything. Do I believe in some supernatural events? I do, because I've experienced them. But that is not something. Stop. That is not something to base a belief system on.
What is your supernatural event? What is it?
I've had a lot, actually.
Supernatural events. I have to hear it.
Well, for one thing, I was the last person all of my grandparents spoke to before they died.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother on my mom's side, I was sitting in my lazy boy, trying to just relax and watch TV. This is probably 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And my grandmother loved to touch us on the shoulder when she was behind us, when we were kids. And I felt that hand on my shoulder, and I actually turned around because I thought someone was behind me and no one was there. And I found out that morning she had passed away. So it's, I mean, any reasonable human being would say, well, that was your grandmother visiting you. And it's very possible that it could have been. I don't have access to the evidence needed to base a belief system on that, though. That could have been my own imagination. My grandmother was already getting old. I knew that she was sick. I knew that she was dying. And so I could have manufactured that experience in my head, right? I have to be real with myself about that. So would I like to believe in the romanticization of that experience? Yeah, I would like that, but I can't do that. I have to be more reasonable than that.
I had an experience where I was trying to trick this person, okay? And so
I'm gonna go video dark for just a second, though.
Okay.
But I'm listening. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. I took some pictures to a medium, and I intentionally took a picture that had nothing to do with me. I also took a picture of some family members that had passed. My one particular uncle was a singer. He was a musician, and he loved music. And I showed her the picture, and she said, he wants you to know 2 things: that he loves you, and he's not sure that you knew that. And he wants you to know that he could still sing. I was shocked, and I looked at the picture, and I wanted to make sure, was there any indication that he was a singer and that was the most important thing to him in his life. There is no indication. I knew exactly why he wanted me to know that he loved me, because he had separated himself so from our general family activities. Another uncle story, different uncle by marriage. But he was a Jehovah's Witness. And the first thing she says to me is, well, Erica, there's more than 144,000 people over here. And I said, well, any Jehovah's Witness will tell you that they stand by the idea. There's only 144,000 people who are going to heaven. And there was nothing. There was no reason for her to say that to me.
Are you Jehovah's Witness?
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
But you know,
here's
Jehovah's Witnesses in my family.
Here's the problem, and I don't want to ruin anybody, but this has to be said. If there's only going to be 144,000 people in heaven after the what do they call it, the
rapture?
The rapture, that immediately calls into question free will and predestination. That means that God already knows what's going to happen to everybody and everybody throughout all time. That means he watched without action as some of the most gruesome and horrible things have happened to every single living being that's ever walked this earth. And he only chose 144,000 people out of all the billions of people that have walked on this earth in the past. There's like, I don't think they realize what they did to themselves when they limited to 144,000 people. They called into serious question and serious doubt about the validity of their religion.
Well, their belief is that it's similar to yours in this particular way, that when you die, you go to the earth and you stay there until the time of, you know, when Jesus comes back. Then there's going to be the rapture, and you will rise, but we will stay here on earth. And so there's that kind of thing going on.
I mean, I'd be down for that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're shaking on that one? Okay. Shaking.
No, I'd totally be down for that. Live forever, get to experience human life for the rest of eternity. That'd be pretty dope. Well, you know, that's the thing that I think people don't understand about atheists and a lot of atheists, because we have different beliefs of atheism, or different versions of atheism, but there's nothing anywhere that doesn't prescribe to me the belief that heaven is a great idea. It's a wonderful idea. It's fantastical. It would be so amazing to live on for the rest of eternity. It really would be. It's incredibly appealing to everybody. There's just no evidence that it has. There's no evidence that it does. And there's no evidence that I will make it there. So a lot of atheists, it's just a lack of belief. It's not that God doesn't exist. It's just we don't have enough evidence
information
to believe that he does. Yeah.
So I want to go back, roll back.
If God came down, he was like, "Hey, homie, what's up?" I'd be like, "Oh shit."
You know, I'm going to, don't beat me up, but I think I'm going to start praying for you to find evidence.
Nah, don't do that, because I'll probably ignore it anyways.
There you go. I have my answer. Well, but what if?
I mean, if you don't think my mom's not praying for me nightly, I'm sure there's a bunch of people. I've actually had people like try to do an intervention, and
I wouldn't dare. No, I absolutely would not dare, because
I'm not offended by it. It doesn't offend me that someone loves me that much to try and do that. I think a lot of atheists take offense to it, and they shouldn't. that means someone cares about you enough that they don't want to lose your soul for all eternity. I think that's pretty significant. It's just, unfortunately, it's not going to sway my opinion.
I want to go back to your opinion. If there was something said to you, like you couldn't have tipped him off. There's nothing up. There's no way. Something so specific. I mean, what would come to your mind? What would come to your heart?
The first thing I would ask is how many people in society have that same exact trait.
Okay. I'll give you another one.
I don't know a single Black person who doesn't have a great singing voice.
Okay, but that's not true. You know what? I know a lot of Black people who can't sing.
I know a lot of white people who can't sing.
Right, but in this particular instance, my uncle lived for singing.
Mm-hmm.
Lived for singing.
Mm-hmm.
That was his thing. And with my other uncle, one of the most prominent things about him was being a Jehovah's Witness. And so it wasn't that she mentioned something obscure about these people.
Yeah.
The most significant things about these people she mentioned to me. So that was the oddity. Well, I want to give you something else. You may or you may not be.
Well, let me respond to that really quick, because I think this would have significance here. I think it's our duty as human beings, and even more so for Christians, to really, really investigate those critically, those experiences extremely critically, because you do not want to leave a doubt behind when you find proof of its existence, right? Because it's really easy for me to tear apart weak proof. Like, it's really easy. Like, was he wearing a cross? I don't know.
No.
You get what I'm saying. Is like, you take all those things and you take the picture and you start sifting through it, trying to see if there was any clues.
Witnesses wouldn't wear crosses, though. Just FYI, I don't think.
Well, I'm just saying. You take what evidence you do have and you start removing as much as you can. The problem is if there's not enough evidence there. So a lack of evidence is not evidence of existence. And any claim, any ridiculous claim, or let me rephrase that. Any extremely high, no, that's not even the right wording. Any fantastical claim requires equally fantastic evidence. Okay. So you really do have to be critical. And if you can be critical and still come up with the same answer through unbiased reasoning, then I would be convinced. But I don't think it's possible.
You never know.
No, you don't. I'm not that ignorant. Yeah.
Yeah, I know when I was saying you never know. What I mean is,
I should say I'm not that arrogant. That's what I meant.
You never know what could be said or what might happen. I don't know. I will tell you, my experience with this person shook me to the core. I was so shocked and surprised by that. And I've had some other experiences that have made my connection with not just Scott, but truly believing in the afterlife more significant. Because I think growing up, I believed in God, but not so much believing in people's existence in the afterlife and really thinking about that in a concrete way. After spending time with this woman, I began to believe in people's experience in their life journey in a concrete way. But anyway, I'm going to bend Steve's ear just for maybe about 5 minutes more behind the scenes, but I'm going to let you guys go. It's been a great night, such a front by
Absolutely.
journey. Steve, do you have any final words?
Love one another and don't be dicks.
Good Lord. Good.
And as always, I'm incredibly appreciative of Coach's invitation to me to be here tonight, and I'm very humbled, and I appreciate everybody who came and watched and contributed, and everybody here is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I was able to spend time with you, Steve. And to the Epic Understanding family, I'm simply going to say thank you for stopping by. Bye-bye for now. You're winning. You're winning. You're winning.